Let me see your identification. This is an immigration stop.
I'm Lieutenant Marcus Hayes with Phoenix PD. My badge is in my vehicle.
Right, that's what they all say. I need official papers confirming your citizenship. I'm Lieutenant Marcus Hayes, badge number 2847. You can call my station to confirm. We'll verify everything downtown, and lying here will destroy your badge, your career, and your reputation. One false word, and I'll make sure you regret showing up alive.
The Shell station located on McDowell Road was crowded when the incident occurred. Tuesday morning, 9:47 a.m., the type of scorching desert heat that softens asphalt and transforms steering wheels into searing metal brands. Lieutenant Marcus Hayes had pulled in for fuel on his drive home after working an overnight shift. Dressed in regular clothing, basketball shorts, a Phoenix Suns t-shirt, sunglasses shielding him from the brightness. He had just completed filling the tank when 3 ICE agents walked over from a white official government SUV he hadn't seen arrive. Their body-worn cameras were active, capturing footage that would later become the costliest fuel purchase stop in Arizona records. Before we go further, where are you viewing this from? If this is your first visit here, please press that subscribe button. Accounts like this one only spread when we share them ourselves, and your support helps these videos reach individuals who truly need to witness what's actually taking place in our communities. Agent Todd Brennan headed the approach. His colleagues, Agents Valdez and Kim, spread out widely as though herding animals. Hayes noticed them advancing, observed the tactical positioning, the hands positioned close to holsters, the posture of officers who had already classified him as trouble. His law enforcement instincts logged every detail in the brief moment it took them to reach him. Federal officers, immigration and customs enforcement. Badges clearly displayed on their vests, staring at him as if he were quarry. He understood the direction this encounter was heading before Brennan even spoke. Good afternoon. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is performing an operation in this vicinity. We require identification and evidence of lawful presence. Brennan's tone carried that distinctive official monotony, the inflection of someone routinely reciting procedures they had performed countless times. Hayes removed his sunglasses, ensured both hands remained visible. 23 years in policing had shown him that abrupt motions near armed officers could get people killed. I'm a police officer. Phoenix PD Lieutenant Marcus Hayes. My badge and credentials are inside my truck. He nodded toward his F-150 waiting at the pump behind him. Everyone claims they're somebody, Brennan answered, not budging, not permitting Hayes to shift. Do you have any paperwork on your person at this moment? The phrasing made it obvious he placed zero trust in the statement. Hayes sensed fury ignite inside his chest, that well-known sting that arises from being handled this way inside his own community, wearing his own department's jersey at a filling station he had visited hundreds of times. My wallet is in my rear pocket. My badge is in my vehicle. I have served as a Phoenix police officer for 23 years. If you contact my station, they will confirm it. We will confirm all details after we have confirmed your identity and immigration status, Brennan stated coldly. That means you're accompanying us whether you agree or not. I need documentation immediately or we will place you under detention for further processing. Valdez had shifted to Hayes's right flank, Kim to his left. The triangular formation was closing in. Hayes instantly identified it, containment technique, the formation employed when officers anticipate someone might attempt escape or resistance. Except he wasn't fleeing. He stood openly at a fuel pump in daylight, hands plainly visible, attempting to clarify his identity to federal officers who had already constructed their own version of events. My identification is in my wallet. Do you want me to retrieve it? Hayes inquired, voice calm even as the encounter escalated. He had conducted stops like this himself. He understood exactly how they could turn dangerous. He knew reaching for any object could be mistaken for reaching for a firearm. Slowly, using 2 fingers only, no quick motions, Brennan commanded, his hand now unmistakably resting on his firearm. The 3 body cameras documented Hayes moving deliberately, extracting his wallet from his back pocket as carefully as though handling an explosive device, then opening it to display his driver's license. Arizona driver's license, his photograph, his Glendale residence, validly issued and recently renewed, entirely lawful and up to date. Brennan accepted the wallet, inspected the license with little curiosity. This does not establish citizenship or lawful status. I require a passport, birth certificate, naturalization documents, anything that confirms your legal right to remain in this country. The statement struck like a physical blow. Hayes had entered the world in Tucson. His father had entered the world in Tucson. His grandfather had entered the world in New Mexico back when it remained a territory. His lineage had been American longer than Arizona had existed as a state. I was born in Tucson. I am a natural-born United States citizen. I'm also a police lieutenant. My badge sits in my truck 15 feet from here. Allow me to retrieve it. You aren't moving from this spot until we confirm your status, Brennan replied, slipping Hayes's license into his own pocket. An action that constituted theft by any normal standard, though it would later be labeled as preserving evidence. We will require you to accompany us for processing and verification. Processing? Hayes echoed, his tone now sharp. You are placing me under arrest? On what legal basis? What reasonable suspicion exists that I am present unlawfully, other than the color of my skin? The question lingered in the blazing air surrounding them. Other patrons at the station had frozen. Smartphones were appearing. Witnesses were emerging in the way they always do when something feels unjust. A woman fueling her car 3 pumps away held her phone aloft recording. A man stepping out of the convenience store halted, observing. Should federal officers be permitted to insist on citizenship documents from any person absent reasonable suspicion? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because what occurred to Marcus Hayes could occur to any one of us. The only barrier between lawful governance and tyranny is the courage to pose the difficult questions. We are carrying out an enforcement action in this zone. Based on information concerning unauthorized employment, Valdez interjected, his camera capturing Hayes's expression, the tightly restrained rage just beneath the surface. We possess legal authority to confirm the status of persons we come into contact with. Information, Hayes responded. So you observed a black man standing at a fuel pump and concluded you needed to demand documentation. That's your information. That's your reasonable suspicion. Brennan's jaw clenched visibly. Turn around. Place your hands behind your back. You are being detained pending verification of legal status. Call my precinct? Hayes cut in, refusing to turn, refusing to comply, refusing to hand them the submission they expected. Central Precinct, Phoenix Police Department. Ask for Captain Williams. Inform him you have Lieutenant Marcus Hayes detained at a Shell station on McDowell. See what happens next. Turn around, Brennan repeated, reaching for handcuffs. That was the moment Hayes resolved his course. He would not simplify their task. He would not allow himself to be escorted into their vehicle and absorbed into the federal machinery for however long it took to determine his identity. He set his feet firmly, maintained visible hands, and employed the authoritative tone refined across 20-plus years of leadership. I am not resisting. I am not attempting to flee. I am exercising my Fourth Amendment protections. You lack reasonable suspicion to detain me. You lack probable cause to arrest me. I am a Phoenix Police Department lieutenant, and if you lay hands on me without lawful justification, you are committing assault upon a peace officer. The declaration rang out sharply and audibly, delivered for the body cameras, for the bystanders filming, for the permanent record. Brennan faltered. This response diverged from the norm. Most individuals they encountered usually submitted out of intimidation or bewilderment, usually entered the vehicle and resolved matters afterward. This individual was reciting constitutional protections, asserting he was law enforcement, creating a public scene captured from several civilian phones. We possess authority, Brennan began. You possess authority to briefly stop individuals when you hold reasonable suspicion they have violated immigration statutes, Hayes interrupted. What reasonable suspicion exists concerning me? What specific, articulable facts caused you to single me out at this particular filling station? Because if your answer is that I have brown skin and I'm purchasing gasoline, that is not reasonable suspicion. That is racial profiling, and you are aware of it. Kim advanced from the left, attempting to seize Hayes's arm. Hayes stepped backward, hands still raised. Not threatening, but preventing unwanted contact. Do not touch me. I have not consented to any search or seizure. You are infringing upon my constitutional rights, and the entire incident is being documented from multiple perspectives. The impasse stretched perhaps 30 seconds, yet it seemed far longer. 3 federal officers encircling one man, customers staring, phones recording, mourning vehicles on McDowell slowing as drivers craned to watch. Then Brennan reached his decision, the mistaken one. The one that would ultimately cost the government $13, $9 million. Subject is resisting detention. Take him into custody. They advanced as one unit. Valdez and Kim gripped Hayes's arms while Brennan moved for the cuffs. Hayes did not struggle. Struggling would have invited felony charges of assaulting federal officers. But he did not assist either. He became limp weight, muscles rigid yet not yanking, compelling them to wrestle him into restraints while he continued addressing the cameras. I am not resisting. I am being subjected to assault by federal officers without reasonable suspicion or probable cause. My name is Lieutenant Marcus Hayes, Phoenix Police Department, badge number 2847. I am a United States citizen. This detention is unlawful. The handcuffs locked around his wrists, tight enough to restrict blood flow. Brennan's body camera recorded the entire procedure, recorded Hayes's expression, recorded the instant. A 23-year law enforcement veteran was handled like a suspect at a gas station simply for refueling while black. They escorted him toward their SUV, past gawking customers, past the woman still filming, past the man on his phone whom Hayes overheard saying, "Yeah, they're taking some guy into custody. I don't know why he keeps saying he's a police officer." My truck, Hayes said, twisting to glance backward at his F-150 still parked at the pump, keys in the ignition, badge and duty firearm secured inside the center console. My vehicle is left unsecured. I have a firearm inside. We'll take care of it, Brennan replied. A statement that conveyed precisely zero reassurance. They placed Hayes in the rear of their SUV, the partition separating front from back, the confined space that reeked of anxiety, perspiration, and the countless others who had occupied it previously. The body cameras captured him seated there, wrists cuffed behind him, face locked in restrained outrage. Then Brennan placed a call, his camera recording his portion of the exchange. "Yeah, we have a subject in custody for status verification. Claims he's Phoenix PD but no badge or identification visible. Detained at Shell on McDowell, correct. Yeah, we'll transport him in." He concluded the phone conversation and settled into the driver's seat with Valdez seated beside him as passenger, Kim positioned in the rear, monitoring Hayes closely. They drove away from the filling station, abandoning Hayes's pickup still at the fuel dispenser, and proceeded toward the ice field office. In the backseat, Hayes addressed the cameras directly, aware they were actively capturing everything. Approximately 10:00 a.m. on Tuesday morning. I have been taken into custody by ICE agents Brennan, Valdez, and Kim lacking any reasonable suspicion or probable cause. I am Lieutenant Marcus Hayes of the Phoenix Police Department. I was born in Tucson, Arizona. I am a United States citizen by birth. This custody infringes upon my Fourth Amendment protections. All actions these agents are performing are being documented, and they will be held accountable. The journey lasted 28 minutes. Hayes remained quiet following his declaration, inhaling deeply and steadily, managing his rage, mentally rehearsing the sequence of events likely to unfold. They would handle his intake, eventually confirm his identity, and eventually grasp that they had committed a serious blunder. The uncertainty lay in how much time that confirmation would require, and how much harm they might inflict before owning the mistake. Upon arrival at the ice field office, they parked inside the protected garage and escorted Hayes indoors, still restrained in handcuffs. Still handled as though he were a suspect in custody. The processing area buzzed with activity. Other individuals in different stages of intake, agents moving about with the practiced indifference of routine administration. They placed Hayes in a detention room. A 10 by 10 foot space with concrete walls and a steel bench. "An officer will attend to you soon," Brennan stated, unlocking the handcuffs. "I don't imagine you'd care to place that call to my station now," Hayes remarked, massaging his wrists where the restraints had left crimson welts. "We'll authenticate your identity via official procedures," Brennan answered, meaning they would proceed deliberately, adhere to protocol, protect themselves administratively before conceding their error. The door shut, leaving Hayes seated on the metal bench inside a federal detention cell, a police lieutenant with over 20 years of duty, being processed as if he had unlawfully entered the country. He had occupied similar rooms previously on the opposite side, questioning detainees, building investigations. He never imagined he would occupy this seat. 1 hour elapsed, then another. Hayes could detect movement beyond the door, agents conversing, telephones chiming. The apparatus of immigration enforcement churning through its everyday operations. No one arrived to speak with him. No one clarified the situation. Only quiet, prolonged waiting and the mounting certainty that somewhere, someone was on the verge of recognizing a disastrous oversight. At 12:43 p.m. 3 hours and some minutes after the filling station encounter, the door at last swung open. A supervisor, identifiable by the rank markings, entered followed by Brennan, who appeared desperate to be elsewhere. "Mr. Hayes," the supervisor said, his tone deliberately even. "I am Supervisory Agent Martinez. There has been an issue. You mean you finally contacted Phoenix PD and discovered I am precisely who I claim to be?" Hayes responded, his voice level and unemotional. "Lieutenant Marcus Hayes, 23 years on the department, born in Tucson, natural-born citizen. And you held me for 3 hours because I was refueling my vehicle." Martinez had the grace to appear uneasy. "We adhered to standard verification protocol for status confirmation. You are now free to depart. We will organize transportation back to your vehicle." "Protocol?" Hayes echoed. "Your protocol involves detaining U.S. citizens absent reasonable suspicion, ignoring when an individual states he is law enforcement, leaving his vehicle unsecured at a service station for 3 hours. Silence. What response could they offer that wouldn't worsen matters? I require copies of every body camera recording," Hayes continued. "I want the full names and badge numbers of all 3 involved agents. I want a complete official incident report, and I want an explanation of the reasonable suspicion that justified stopping me initially, beyond my skin color at a fuel pump." "You will be provided with all required documentation," Martinez stated, bureaucratic language for delivering only the bare legal minimum. "Once more, we regret any inconvenience caused." "Inconvenience," Hayes murmured softly. "You placed a police lieutenant in restraints and held him for 3 hours without justification. And you label it an inconvenience. We have moved far beyond inconvenience. We are firmly in the realm of federal civil rights infringement, and you recognize that." They transported him back to the Shell station in strained quiet. His pickup remained exactly where he left it. Miraculously not impounded, still positioned at the pump. Hayes inspected the center console. Badge undisturbed, service firearm still locked away. Nothing appeared tampered with. He paused in the lot for a moment, breathing deeply, reflecting, determining his next step. Then he entered his truck, drove directly to Phoenix Police Headquarters, and entered Captain Williams's office still dressed in basketball shorts and his son's shirt. "Marcus, what in the world?" Williams began, then noticed his face. "What occurred?" Hayes recounted every particular. The stop, the custody, the 3 hours inside a federal holding cell. Williams listened, his expression shifting from worry to outrage. "They held you for what reason?" "For having brown skin. That's the entire basis. No reasonable suspicion, no probable cause." Merely 3 ICE agents who observed a black man and chose to insist on documentation. Williams grabbed his telephone. "I'm contacting the chief, and you need to reach out to an attorney. This exceeds departmental matters. This enters federal civil rights litigation territory." The attorney Hayes retained was Amanda Torres, a civil rights litigator renowned for successfully suing federal entities. She reviewed his account, obtained the body camera videos via FOIA, and within 8 weeks compiled sufficient material to lodge a complaint that left the Department of Homeland Security's legal department stunned. The recordings were devastating. 3 synchronized perspectives depicting Hayes approached without basis, detained absent suspicion, restrained and transported despite his clear self-identification. Audio preserved his repeated declarations of citizenship, his badge number, his pleas for verification with his agency, and their refusal until after routing him through their system. Lieutenant Marcus Hayes versus the United States of America, Todd Brennan, Louis Valdez, Jennifer Kim. The filing charged unlawful custody, false imprisonment, breach of Fourth Amendment safeguards against unreasonable seizure, racial profiling, denial of civil rights under color of authority, and deliberate infliction of emotional harm. Evidence included hundreds of exhibit pages, body camera files, eyewitness accounts from the service station, location data from phone records, his Phoenix PD employment history, his birth certificate establishing citizenship, an ironclad demonstration of wrongful custody. The government proposed settlement within 4 months, $75,000. Torres replied with a single word, no. They countered with $300,000, still inadequate. Your agents held a police lieutenant for 3 hours solely because of his race. Torres informed the government counsel. You disregarded his identification, his badge number, his constitutional protections. We are proceeding to trial, and a jury will compensate for every moment of that unlawful detention. The trial commenced 19 months after the filling station incident. The downtown Phoenix courtroom overflowed daily. Off-duty officers attended in uniform to show support. Civil rights groups, local residents, national media covered what had evolved into an emblem of excessive authority and racial bias. On day 2, the body camera videos played. All 3 views aligned. The jury observed Hayes being confronted, interrogated, detained, heard him identify himself plainly and persistently, watched 3 federal agents disregard his words and apply handcuffs regardless. When the video concluded, several jurors appeared furious. One shook her head gradually, her face showing revulsion. Hayes took the stand for 9 hours spread over 4 days. He guided the jury through his professional history, his service achievements, his awards. He described the degradation of being detained. At a station he had patronized hundreds of times in his own community, wearing his own team's apparel. He explained the terror that coursed through him. Would they accept his identity? Would the situation worsen? Would he become another statistic, another viral name? I have served as an officer for 23 years, he told the jury. I have conducted thousands of stops, hundreds of apprehensions. I understand what constitutes reasonable suspicion. I understand what probable cause demands. Those agents possessed neither. They saw a man with brown skin at a fuel pump. And that sufficed for them. Everything else, my statements, my badge number, my rights, held no weight because they had already concluded I didn't belong. The defense contended the agents behaved appropriately based on intelligence regarding unauthorized work in the vicinity. Torres dismantled that claim during Brennan's cross-examination. Agent Brennan, what precise intelligence did you possess concerning unauthorized employment at that specific Shell station? We had broad intelligence about the surrounding area. The surrounding area, so not that particular station. Correct. And what element of Lieutenant Hayes's conduct or appearance led you to suspect unauthorized employment? He fit the general demographic profile. Demographic profile? You mean he had brown skin? That's not how I phrased it. But that is the implication because nothing else. His attire, his vehicle, his actions indicated unauthorized employment. He was simply refueling. So what precisely prompted you to single him out? Silence. The jury observed Brennan search futilely for a reply that wouldn't equate to racial profiling. The jury deliberated for 8 days. Upon returning, the foreperson announced a verdict that stunned the courtroom. Guilty on every charge. The damages phase extended another 12 days. The jury learned of Hayes's recurring nightmares, his heightened alertness, his eroded trust in federal officers, heard from his captain about the incident's impact on his professional performance and peer relationships, heard from a psychologist about PTSD and the unique anguish experienced by law enforcement personnel who fall victim to the very system they uphold. When the jury declared the award, the room fell hushed. $9.4 million in compensatory damages, $4. $5 million in punitive damages. Total, $13, $9 million. Brennan, Valdez, and Kim were reassigned to administrative desks. The field office supervisor who postponed confirmation was demoted. The Department of Homeland Security released cautiously phrased announcements regarding internal reviews and policy adjustments, eschewing any acknowledgement of deeper systemic flaws. Training documents received updates as part of routine revisions. Nothing that conceded this particular incident exposed core deficiencies. Hayes remained with Phoenix PD for 3 more years before opting for early retirement. He directed a portion of his award to establish a legal aid group assisting individuals detained by immigration authorities, offering free legal representation and help with paperwork. The filling station encounter transformed into a warning lesson taught in police academies and law schools, an illustration of how preconceptions override facts, how bias devastates existences, and how even official credentials fail to shield you when prejudice determines you don't belong. If you hold that citizenship ought not demand proof at everyday places like fuel stations, that reasonable suspicion must carry real weight, then press that subscribe button. More accounts are on the way demonstrating why proper records matter, why recordings preserve lives, and why justice sometimes depends on a jury brave enough to declare, enough. Because in a nation where a police lieutenant can be held captive for having brown skin while purchasing gasoline, every one of us stands one encounter away from needing to demonstrate we belong in our own country.